Master Bravo here to review the first episode of Part 2 of Alchemy of Souls, our favorite K-drama series. The last time we talked, Jun-uk was reincarnated as the all-powerful ice stone being, and they were dragging Mudogi out of the lake. But that was 3 years ago, they tell us. And now we are in Part 2. 3 years ago, they say. Is this a metaphor for every 33 years the sun and the moon align themselves? A metaphor? Yes. The 33-year lunar solar cycle is a clue in the mystery. Break it down to 3 and we have a TV show. So in this episode of Part 2, they don't really tell us what happened back then when they dragged Mudogi out of the lake, but we can safely assume that Lady Jin used one of her fascinating relics to pull Naksu Imbuyon's soul out of the dead Mudogi's body. Since Buyon is still not in her own body and is using Naksu's body to live in, well, her mother, Lady Jin, is keeping her locked up in a secret room. We can also safely assume that Mudogi's dead body is being kept on ice as a future leverage and power over Jun-uk if Lady Jin needs to be. We will see that in the future, hopefully, when they reincarnate Mudogi. So as superfans, we suffered for months with no episodes, and here we start Part 2, Episode 1 off with getting to know our favorite characters. The show meanders through the set, touching base with all the main players, but sadly Mudogi is nowhere to be seen, as we know. Hopefully the show can hang in there till Mudogi is reincarnated. But until that time, we have the new Naksu character to grace the screen. In this episode, it features the beautiful Buyon/Naksu character. She is quite beautiful, but she lacks the Mudogi facial expressions, but is beautiful nonetheless. So let's go over some of the finer details that you may or may not have caught in this episode. First, when Naksu demands and then snatches the liquor bottle away from the young worker, we know that the aggressive Naksu is not so dormant in this body. Apparently, she has forgotten everything that happened prior to the last 3 years. She's forgotten everything. But we know with her actions that this is the original Naksu lingering. So again, early in the show, we see Naksu snatching the bottle of liquor away from the worker, and she is quite aggressive. She can be aggressive. Next, in one of the first opening scenes, we see Jung-uk being nice to the workers as he is about to dispense of a soul shifter and turn him into stone. And as you can see, he uses Naksu's sword to kill the soul shifters in her honor. After he killed the soul shifter, the workers gave him a charm. They said it would protect him from Naksu. Little did the workers know what Naksu meant to Jun-uk. But he was polite and he took the charm, but he then said to himself, if you were to come back to me again, if I had this charm, I would not be able to see you. So he releases the charm into the air and destroys it, because if she does come back, he does want to know how to identify her. But that's how fate is. Yes, fate is the strangest thing. You cannot fight it, it just happens. In the same way that Jun-uk was destined to meet Mudogi in Part 1, Jun-uk is destined to meet the new Naksu in Part 2. So as the episode continues, do you think it was an accident that the soul shifter led Jun-uk to Jinnawan? And that's where he killed her, right at the hidden entranceway to Naksu's secret prison? Do you think this was an accident? I think not. This is fate at work. Don't fight it. Just go along for the ride. It should be good. So Jun-uk, it's not by accident, but they want us to believe by accident he finds the hidden entranceway, the secret hidden entranceway to the prison where they are keeping Naksu for the last 3 years. So let's go over some of the yin and yang cycle metaphors that are at play in this episode. In the same way that Jun-uk looked into the eyes of Mudogi way back in episode 1, he ends up looking into the eyes of the new Naksu in this episode. We're talking about cycles here. In the same way he saw the mark in Mudogi's eyes way back in the first episode, the new Naksu can see the ice stone in Jun-uk. So Buyan is here. We know that because the new Naksu can see the ice stone inside of Jun-uk. To learn and to understand the cycles. This is how we grow. Is time an illusion? The similarities between Mudogi in part 1, episode 1, her actions, the similarities between Mudogi's actions and the new Naksu's actions here in part 2, these are the cycles. Are they one? Are we one? Is time an illusion? And we keep on doing the same thing over and over and over in a different play, in a different set, in a different costume, in different names and faces. But our soul is there, running in the cycles of time, which is an illusion. This is how we grow, by trying to understand this mystery, and it is a mystery indeed. Yes, we are all connected, like the rose petals that fall into Naksu's prison as Jun-uk walks by the rose bushes. We are all connected. She can smell the roses that are blooming. Buyan is living in Naksu's body. We know this. We think that Naksu, for the most part, is laying dormant in her body, but that is the mystery at play here and now. And then Jun-uk, who has the ice stone in him, he has to pay the price. He is going through the motions of being an all-powerful ice stone being with superpowers, but he is tormented by the dark, cold wraiths that want to feed off of his power. And he drinks hard liquor to help him self-medicate the pain of losing Mudogi. So Jun-uk is a troubled person right now. He's lonely. He's in pain. The wraiths are tormenting him. And this is part of life. Winter is here. It looks like part 2 is going to show us winter indeed. Yes, winter is part of the cycles. Let's take one last look at the cycles that are being explained to us in this episode. Because the new Naksu, she makes her way to the bordello, and once again she meets the head mistress. And, well, think back to episode 1 when the show just started. Just as the pretty head mistress of the bordello once explained the 4 seasons to Mudogi way back then, she again explains something to the new Naksu. She explains the 4 powerful men that all the girls want to marry. She explains this to the new Naksu in this new part 2 episodes. Again, we are studying the cycles. And then again, in the same way that Mudogi left a deep, lasting impression on the head mistress of the bordello, the new Naksu does the same thing again, leaving a deep impression on the head mistress, and then only to run away from the bordello, being accused of being a thief. The cycles keep on repeating. Well, 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 I keep on telling you that this is an amazing show and we keep on analyzing it. Jang-uk is the ice stone man that everyone avoids, leaving a trail of cold darkness everywhere he goes, dressed in black. This indeed is a new chapter in a reoccurring yin and yang cycle of love, struggle, power, and death. And did you notice the power of Naksu's sword flowing to the new Naksu there at the table when Jang-uk bangs the sword on the table? Did you notice that power kind of flowing over to the new Naksu? Go back and watch. The Naksu and Jang-uk adventure continues.